Hello. In this video, we will be finishing up Chapter 17 in the Blue Azar Grammar Book, and by the end of this video, you should be ready and prepared to take the Chapter 17 grammar test on My English Lab. Please remember that the Chapter 17 grammar test on My English Lab is due on Monday, April 13th at 9 a.m. Now, let's first review what we remember from previous pages and previous videos. Some rules that we established were that adverb clauses are dependent clauses that are not complete sentences. Main clauses are independent clauses that are complete sentences. And we also said that if the main clause is first, then you don't have a comma. If your adverb clause is first, you do have a comma. And we also said that we use adverb clauses in English for the following four purposes: to talk about time, cause and effect, transition, and also condition. Now, in the last video, we talked about three different ways to use adverb clauses in expressing conditions. One way was we use if clauses to talk about conditions. For example, if it rains tomorrow, I will take my umbrella. And here are the adverb clauses, if it rains tomorrow. Now, we remember from the previous video, we also said that in the if clause and in the adverb clause, it needs to be in the present tense. Here is the adverb clause, and here it's in the present tense. It cannot be in the future tense, so it is not possible to say, if it will rain tomorrow, I will take my umbrella. So the future tense will in the if clause is not possibly correct or not grammatically correct. Continuing. Okay, so here we cannot use the future will in the adverb clause. Continuing, we also said that for condition, we also use shortened if clause. So in English, there are multiple ways of reducing things that we say. So let's say, for example, we can say, are you a student? If you are a student, the movie is half price. Or if you are, the movie is half price. Or if so, the movie is half price. For the negative answer, we can say, if you aren't a student, the movie is full price. If you aren't, the movie is full price. Or if not, the movie is full price. Now, you'll notice that here, you a student, or are you a student, is repeated multiple times in the affirmative. And in the negative, you have you aren't a student. It's also repeated and also gets smaller and smaller and more reduced. Now, one thing to remember for shortened if clause here, but yeah, okay, right, and that's it. So here it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. Okay. Lastly, in the previous video, we also said that we use the words whether or not and even if to talk about conditions. So let's say two examples. I'm going to go swimming tomorrow whether or not it is cold. Or even if the weather is cold, I'm going to go swimming. In both sentences with whether or not and even if, the meaning is the same, which is to express that no matter what the condition, if it's hot, cold, warm, I am still going to go swimming. And remember, for these words, the condition has no effect whatsoever on the result. Or in other words, the condition of the temperature, or how hot or cold it is, has no effect on the result of going swimming tomorrow. Now, this is just a review. For more information, or if you would like to review again, please go back to your Blue Azar Grammar Book and review pages 382 to 385. Now, let's continue. In this video, we will talk about three more ways to express conditions in adverb clauses. One phrase that we use is in case, and let me give you an example. Oops, okay. I will take my bag with me in case we decide to stop at the store. Okay. And here the adverb clause is in case we decide to stop at the store. Here, the meaning of in case in English, some of you already know this, or some of you are already using this in your when you speak English. The meaning is to explain that I am doing something because it is possible that something else may also happen. So in other words, I am doing something, I am taking my bag because of the possibility and because of the condition that we decide to stop at the store. Again, to repeat, the basic meaning of in case is I am doing something because of the possibility and the condition that something else may also happen. So let's talk more, and let me give you more examples to deepen your understanding of this. Now, when you go outside, or before you go outside and go to the store, think of some other things you might bring with you in your bag or even your purse. What would you put in your bag before you go outside? Okay, so you might bring your identification or your ID card. You might bring an umbrella, a book, definitely your cell phone, some aspirin or medicine, gum, I always like to keep gum, wallet, a pen and paper, water, or even cash. So I would say, for me, I would bring most of these before I go out. I think most people would also bring these things too. So because of these things that we might put in our bags or purses before we go out, we could turn these into sentences with in case. And we could say, I will bring my ID in case I lose consciousness and someone needs to identify me or identify my body. Or I'll bring an umbrella in case it rains. Or I'll bring a book in case I end up waiting for a meeting or an appointment to begin. I'll bring my cell phone in case I need to contact someone in an emergency. I'll bring some medicine in case I get sick or I get a headache. I'll bring my wallet in case I need money. I'll bring a pen and paper in case I need to write something down. I'll bring water in case I get thirsty. And also I'll bring some cash in case they don't take credit cards. So that, I think the last one is very important. And as you all may know, as you notice, all sentences contain the word in case. And specifically, here are the adverb clauses in each sentence. So again, underlined in red below are the adverb clauses. Now, remember when we said before that adverb clauses can only have the present tense and not the future tense. And you'll notice here that in every adverb clause, the verb is in the present tense. So for example, in case I lose consciousness and someone needs to identify my body, needs is the verb in the present tense. And I also forgot to circle this one. Lose is also a verb, also needs to be in the present tense. Same thing here with rains, end, need, get, need, get, and don't. All these words circled in blue are verbs in the present tense. So you can only have the present tense for the adverb clause. Okay, good. So continuing, another phrase that we could use to talk about conditions is with the word unless. So let's use this as an example. We will continue with online instruction unless Middlesex County College announces we can go back to the classroom. Basically, the meaning of unless means if not. So basically in the sentence, and another way to explain it, is we will continue with online instruction if not the condition of Middlesex County College announcing we can go back to the classroom. It basically means that a condition is required for a particular result. So here, the condition that is required is for MCC to not announce we can go back to the classroom. Again, to repeat, the requirement is for MCC to not announce we can go back to the classroom is the condition to have the particular desired result of continuing with online instruction. Let's look at another example. Okay, so another example we can say is you can't drive unless you are 16 in the state of New Jersey. Here again we have the we have the word unless, and remember unless is we need a condition, we need to have a required condition to have a particular result. Here, here is the condition is, the required condition is you need to be 16 years of age. That's the requirement. The minimum requirement is 16 years of age. That's the required condition in order to have the desired result of driving here. Okay, good. So that's the meaning of unless. You probably already use it in English. Explaining it and kind of really explaining the meaning can be a bit difficult. It might be easier to just use it. You probably know what it means. But one thing to be careful is there is a common confusion with the words unless and also until. In many cases, they have the same meaning. They both describe a required condition for a particular result. So let's say, for example, so here one example we could say is you can't drive unless you are 16 in the state of New Jersey. You can also use the word until with for the same meaning of you can't drive until you are 16 in the state of New Jersey. Or, for example, class doesn't start unless the teacher arrives. And the same meaning is class doesn't start until the teacher arrives. So you will see that in all four sentences with both unless and until, you need a certain condition in order to have a desired result or to have a particular result. So again, typically unless and until have the same meaning. However, there is one difference between unless and until. And the difference is that only until, the word until, expresses a time relationship that has a higher probability of coming true. I repeat, only the word until expresses a time relationship that has a higher probability of coming true. So let me show you what I mean. Okay, so for example, we can say students won't be able to pass the class unless they get 70%. Or you could say students won't be able to pass the class until they get a 70%. Now, in both sentences are grammatically correct, but only one sentence indicates that the passing and getting a 70% will most likely come true. That has a time relationship because it will most likely happen. Again, one of these sentences indicates a time relationship that it might and probably will happen in the future. Do you know which sentence that is? That's right. The second sentence with until is the one that means that students get a 70%. That will most likely happen in the future. There's a higher chance of this happening in the second sentence because until expresses a time relationship here in relation to the future. In the first sentence, students won't be able to pass a class unless they get a 70%. Here, it's less likely to be true, it's less possible, and it sounds more like a hypothetical statement. In the second sentence, until they get a 70%, this sounds like it will most likely come true. Great. Now, before we continue to the last phrase to talk about conditions and adverb clauses, let me give you another tip to help you on your next quiz. Please remember that your next quiz is on Monday, April 13th in the opening conference, and you will be asked questions about this video and also the end of Chapter 8 in the Longman writing book for the quiz. Now, if you want one free help on the quiz, all you have to do is type the following word in the chat next Monday, April 13th. That's right. So again, make sure you type this "OK Professor" with the exclamation mark in the public chat on Monday, April 13th during the quiz. Once you do, I will then give you one free answer to one question in private chat. Again, type this if you want one free help, one free answer to the quiz on Monday, April 13th. Now please remember, you can only use this free help once and not more than once. And so I hope that helps. Now let's finish adverb clauses. The last phrase that we use for conditions in adverb clauses is with the phrase only if. Okay. Now remember my plan in a previous video, my plan to take a vacation after the coronavirus. So if you do remember, we could say, for example, I will take a long vacation only if plane tickets are cheap after the coronavirus. Here, the adverb clause is only if plane tickets are cheap after the coronavirus. Now the phrase here, only if, the meaning is pretty simple, and you probably already use it in English. It basically means that if one condition is not met, then the result will not take place. So specifically here, if the condition that tickets are not cheap, if the condition is not met, then I will not take a long vacation. Then we will not have this result. So basically, if this condition is not met, then the result will not happen. So that's the meaning of only if. It's pretty simple. Now let's talk quickly about the placement and the grammatical placement. So here we said I will take a long vacation only if plane tickets are cheap after the coronavirus. Now we can also place only if at the beginning of a sentence. So we could also say, only if plane tickets are cheap after the coronavirus will I take a long vacation. Again, to repeat, only if in the first sentence is in the middle of the sentence. In second sentence, only if is in the beginning of the sentence. And both mean the same thing. The meaning is the same, the meaning doesn't change. But do you notice anything strange or different between the first and second sentence? Or in other words, there is something that's very different about the second sentence. Do you know what it is? That's right. The position. The verb position changed in the second sentence. In the first sentence, we have the order I is a subject, and then the verb will. Again, first sentence, I is first, and then will. But if you notice in the second sentence with only if in the beginning, will is first, and then I. In English, we call this inversion. Basically, when inversion is a noun form, the verb form is invert. If you invert anything, that basically means you change the order or you change the sequence. So if the rule here is if you use only if in the beginning of the sentence, the verb is first, and then the subject is next. Okay, great. So let's try another example with only if. So let's say here, in this example, John will be able to buy a car only if he can find the money to do so. Now here we can tell that, we can tell that only if is in the middle of the sentence. Now let's have you try. Can you rewrite the sentence so that only if is not in the beginning, but, I'm sorry, is not in the middle, but change it to the beginning of the sentence? And can you rewrite the sentence with only if in the beginning with the verb inversion? So take a few seconds. What would that sentence look like? That's right. So if you were to rewrite it so that only if is in the beginning, you will say only if he can find the money to do so will John be able to buy a car. So you will notice the inversion happening here. In the first sentence, John, subject is first, verb will is second. But in the second sentence, we have the inversion where the verb will is first, and then the subject John is second. So you will see here when you have the inversion with only if in the beginning, the placement and the sequence of subject and verb have changed. Now, this is just the grammatical form. When we talk about form, we're just talking about the placement and what it looks like. Even though the grammatical form is different in both sentences express the same meaning. So if you say the first sentence or the second sentence, the meaning is the same. The person will still understand you that John really needs to find money so that he can buy a car. Okay. Great, congratulations. That's all for Chapter 17 for adverb clauses. Feel free to watch this video or any previous videos again to help you prepare for the Chapter 17 grammar test on My English Lab. So just a reminder, Chapter 17 grammar test on My English Lab is due on Monday, April 13th. And don't forget the free help for Monday's quiz and the phrase that you have to type with the exclamation mark. I hope that helps. Bye-bye.